imagine that your work matters. It doesn't matter what your job is. Everybody wants to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. And when you decide that your work matters no matter what your work is, you'll start to find a sense of purpose. Your value add is needed in a way that only you can offer, that your contribution matters, that team is waiting for someone just like you. Welcome to the Love Your Work Life podcast, where you will get encouragement, strategies, all the things you need to love your work life. This is about transformational, strength-based coaching for career, for leadership, for life. I'm your host, Elissa Shuck. Let's get started. I was commenting on one of Gary Vaynerchuk's posts on LinkedIn the other day. He was talking about, if you hate your job, here's what to do about it. And one of the words I used when I commented, I don't think I've ever used this word before in that context. And it was the word ill-fitting. When you have an ill-fitting job. And it occurred to me that that's kind of what it is sometimes, right? Like just like clothes and fashion choices change over time, what you decide to wear, whether you love it, you hate it, you think you can pull it off anymore or not, eventually things start changing and evolving. And it's the same thing with our jobs. Our jobs just don't fit anymore. And I work with a lot of clients who are job seeking for a wide variety of reasons. They have their personal things that are going on. It could be that they've hit an opportunity ceiling, that the promised promotions never actually materialize. It could be that they just have some shifts in their work-life integration needs. And I use that specifically. I don't really believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life integration. But it doesn't mean that it's always going to look the same over time. What your needs are from your personal life to your professional life and how those things mesh and work together, that evolves over time. Many people come to me because they have a newly developed friction between the work that they're doing or the company that they're working for or their industry and their personal values. And sometimes it's just about growth. It's about growth in their current role to that next level. It's about getting the promotion into a leadership role. But if that isn't possible, then it makes total sense why eventually that role or that position or that job would be ill-fitting. Now notice, ill-fitting doesn't necessarily even mean a bad fit. Like we can squeeze ourselves into that pair of shoes that is not quite right, but for the sake of fashion, we will wear them. But they're ill-fitting. It's going to be painful if we leave them on too long. And this is exactly what happens when you stay in an ill-fitting job. It starts to wear on you. It starts to cause pain. It causes agony. It starts to change your outlook. Have you ever been on your feet all day like I have back when I was in retail? I'm telling you, those feet were hurting by the end of the day, and my mood was not happy and peppy anymore. So you see what I'm getting at? Like the longer you hold yourself in an ill-fitting situation, the more uncomfortable, even to painful, even to resentful you're going to be. But my friends, there is a solution to that. And I know the solution you might be thinking is, well, just go out and find a new job. Listen, finding a new job is the result. The solution to getting there is actually finding the perfect combination of security and groundedness and self-awareness in combination with showing up big for you. You deciding, I'm going to show up for me. I'm going to show up big for me. And what exactly does that look like? Well, the first part of finding that solution is what I would call a philosophy check-in. This is, what are you thinking? What are you thinking about you? This is so important. You cannot go into action without first figuring out what you're thinking about yourself and what you're thinking about the circumstances that you're involved with as you start to contemplate this career move, this transition. Because anything you do from this ill-fitting place is always going to fall short. That's why you have to be rising above the circumstances, the external things that you may or may not have control over. And you also need to rise above your own thinking about yourself. You need to rise above self-doubt. You need to rise above lack. You need to rise above anything that diminishes you. Oftentimes, when I'm working with clients and we're exploring roles together, we're looking at job descriptions together, and we're figuring out, hey, is this a great thing for you? Is this the new best fit for you? One of the habits I see people doing all the time is self-elimination. They look at the job description and say, oh, but I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that. And the can'ts remove them from the application. When really there's probably 70% in there or more that they can do. It's crazy how our brains work. Our brains are so stinking clever about keeping us safe. So all the danger signs of the things you can't do override the 70% of things that you can do. That's why the first thing in the process to finding that perfect combination of self-awareness and showing up big is you checking in on you. And I'm going to use quotes throughout this episode by Wayne Dyer. Such a phenomenal person, so much great wisdom out there. One of my favorite quotes by him is, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. That includes you. When you change the way you look at yourself, you will change. You will see possibilities instead of obstacles. This is just the way things work, my friends. And that's why, first and foremost, you have to check in on you. You have to check in on your philosophy about you. Here's a question that you can ask yourself that will help you with this philosophy check-in. And it's this: what would be different about your work life if you knew you could land any job in any market at any time? It's kind of a mind-blowing question, but I encourage you to press pause on this episode right now and ask yourself that question. What would that mean? When I've asked clients this question, some of the things that come up, it would be freedom. It would feel like sovereignty over your own life and career. It would feel like possibilities. What does it feel like for you? What would be different about your work life if you knew You could land any job in any market at any time. Another Wayne Dyer quote. You cannot always control what goes on outside, but you can always control what goes on inside. That's the core of managing yourself, of managing your own thoughts about you, and really thinking the best possible thoughts about you. What you say when you talk to yourself matters. It makes a difference. Step 2 in this process, I call getting acquainted with your skills, strengths, talents, gifts, and experience. That means looking at your career history from that lens of your philosophy that you're capable, your philosophy that you've got what it takes. All the things, all the negativity that I suggested you rise above in part 1 means that you're starting to see yourself in a positive light. And then you are getting acquainted with how all those wonderful, natural, innate strengths that you're aware of start to align with your career choices, the gifts, talents, experiences, and strengths that you will leverage in the workplace, right? You're starting to craft that narrative for yourself, first from self-awareness, and then in the context of how it shows up in work life. Part 3 is still not action, my friends. I know you're waiting. That's what we all wanted. We just want to dive right in. But trust me, if you don't get these first 3 right, then the action you take, which actually is step 4, will never be effective. So step 3 is see yourself as having what you want. I'll say that again. See yourself as already having what you want. I can tell you from personal experience that every single promotion I got, career pivot I made, I got it because of my self-awareness, of my clear and authoritative ownership of my skills, strengths, gifts, talents, and experience, and combining those 2 things into visualizing myself, into not just visualizing, but feeling the feeling of having achieved what I wanted to achieve. I adopted the thoughts of a leader. I asked myself, what would a leader, a manager, be thinking in this situation? Those are the thoughts I'm going to be thinking. When you ask yourself, what would I be thinking if I already landed that role? How would I be feeling if I already landed that new position in the company I've been targeting for years, or in the new work-life integration that I've been envisioning? How are you feeling when that happens? That's what you've got to go with. You've got to go with the feeling of already having it so that you can take action that will help you get there. Here's the Wayne Dyer quote that goes along with that. And I tell you, this quote it speaks to me so deeply because I've lived it and I've seen other people live it. Not just on an individual basis. I help individuals get things done, but I have years and years and years of experience leading teams. And I've seen this play out in a team dynamic, and it's so powerful. And here's the quote: the more you see yourself as what you'd like to become and act as if what you want is already there, the more you activate those dormant forces that will collaborate to transform your dream into reality. Well, what does this mean? Now, I think this operates at 2 levels. The first level is that we have a lot of skills, strengths, talents, and gifts that are dormant inside us. I truly, truly believe that. That's why I want you to be self-aware. That's why I want you to start connecting the dots for yourself in those first 2 steps, because you're going to start unearthing those dormant forces, those dormant gifts. And the second thing is, I really do believe in the theory of quantum entanglement, that everything is connected, that every idea you have about what's next is an indication that it's actually possible for you, that it's entangled, that it's connected. It's just something you haven't given enough attention to. The observer effect is also active here. Once you observe those possibilities within yourself, you change your course. And the other thing I think about, what does this mean that these dormant forces, these dormant strengths and gifts will come into play, is because I believe in the quantum field of possibilities. And that means everything is always expanding. You're expanding, I'm expanding, the universe is expanding. Like, this is just the natural order of things. This urge to do more, be more, find the right alignment. Because even if you decide that you want a different kind of work-life integration, even if you decide that you want to step back from leading people after doing it for 20 years, this is not a step back. This is just an expansion of who you are. Regardless of where you work, it's always an expansion. And it's an evolution of you. Now, here's what happens. If you resist the expansion, if you resist this thought, this idea, this evolution of you, the more miserable you'll become, the more ill-fitting that job will be. And you don't want to be miserable, my friends. The worst thing in the world is being stuck in the miserable middle of not taking action. And that is number 4. Taking action means doing the things. Rewrite your resume, update your LinkedIn profile, start practicing interview questions. I have podcast episode after podcast episode about how to navigate interviews. So go look those up. Start to prepare yourself. Start to assume that you're going to have that other job, and then reverse engineer it back from the having it to what did I do to get there, and take action on those things. Another great quote, be miserable or motivate yourself. Whatever has to be done, it's always your choice. So how do you motivate yourself? Well, you have to imagine that your work matters. It doesn't matter what your job is. Everybody wants to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. And when you decide that your work matters, no matter what your work is, you'll start to find a sense of purpose. And purpose always motivates inspired action. You don't have to force yourself to do the job search things. You'll feel compelled. You'll feel inspired to do it because you know that your value add is needed in a way that only you can offer, that your contribution matters, that that team is waiting for someone just like you, that your work matters. Don't just decide it, but just live in that space for a little while. Imagine how that feels to be making a difference, to have a sense of purpose where you are, who you are serving. That's where a sense of purpose really comes from, is that sense that you matter because the people around you need someone just like you. And what do you get out of all this? What do you get out of this sense of groundedness and purposefulness and self-awareness and showing up big, well, my friends, your result always matches what you're thinking. That's the beauty of it. When you're thinking, I'm meant for this job, they need someone just like me, guess what? That's the result you'll get. You'll get the result of having the job you want, of having that next level in your career, in your work life, whatever that level looks like for you. So I challenge you, listen to this episode again. Listen to it at a time when you can sit quietly and introspectively and really see how this combination of being fully self-aware in this grounded, self-assured way, in combination with showing up big in how you talk about yourself and the jobs you apply for, put this into action, and you have my promise, because I've seen it over and over in the lives of my clients. I've seen it myself personally. What you want is inevitable. All right, my friends, I'll talk to you again soon. If you like listening to this podcast, I invite you to visit the Love Your Work Life website at elissashuck-careercoach.com. On the site, you're going to find free resources and information about all of my coaching programs, everything you need to land a great job, advance your career, and lead and build an awesome team. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn.